Hi, my name is Nico Lukowski and I work as a senior product owner at Shopware. And in this video series, I would like to introduce you to the B2B components. Today, the first video is an introduction. We will take a look at how exactly this actually works. What kind of features are there? What do I need as a shop operator to be able to use the B2B components? And subsequently, how can my customers use them? How can I enable customers to get started with this? First of all, naturally, the B2B components, as the name suggests, are primarily a collection of various B2B functions. That means if you are currently operating in the B2C business, then this video, or rather the video series in general, will probably not be quite as interesting for you, so feel free to watch out for some of our other tutorials. This is aimed primarily at people who yes, want to conduct B2B business, because Shopware 6 offers a lot of convenience features for that. These features are, of course, assigned to a certain plan with us. If you notice during the course of the video that you are missing menu items or simply don't have these functions, then please feel free to contact our sales team and we can help you out so that in the future, yes, nothing stands in your way and you can use all functions to their full extent. First of all, we have to say here that if we go to the extensions here and then my extensions, all our extensions are listed there. The commercial plugin from Shopware must be activated there. The good thing is the B2B components do not need to be installed separately again. Yes, so if you have them, yes, in your plan and the commercial plugin is activated and so on, then you don't need to worry about that. It's not complicated to set up or anything. It's already included in Shopware and doesn't require any further installation process. So for you at this point, it's very easy and very straightforward. Now we can, for example, take a look here as well. I always check if my environment has it by simply hovering over the orders for a brief moment. And then I can see here whether the quotes management is available in the menu item. If this item is missing for you here, then the business-to-business components are probably not yet activated for you. And as I said, it's best to contact our sales team and then we will help you further. Exactly, but now let's take a look at what the B2B components actually are and how they work. I have already created test data here in advance. That means the shop is already populated with customer accounts, products, and so on, so that we can take a look at everything in detail right now. I will take this demo dataset from the customer here, and I'll click on Edit up here so I can show it a bit better in a moment. If we scroll down a fair bit now, we see B2B components here, and there we find a large group box with various things where we can basically make functions available to the customer or take functions away again afterwards, right? So nothing is set in stone there. We can switch everything on and off again. Unless employees have already been assigned to the customer. We'll come back to that in a moment. Then it's no longer possible to deactivate employee management because logically it has data records under it. In this case, you would first have to go in and delete these data records so that deactivating exactly the single point yes is possible. We'll take a look at this in detail now. First, we find the quick orders. What is that? Those are quick orders, as the name suggests, where we can simply upload lists, for example, in a CSV format. We can imagine, especially in a B2B context, that you have incredibly large orders with sometimes very high quantities, and individual, prices that go along with that. For example, we need 1,000 t-shirts of this, 100 pairs of pants of that, and so on. That is, of course, something that can be very time consuming via the front end with normal B2C functions, having to click together these quantities in the shopping cart. Accordingly, you use this quick order function here to be able to upload large orders as a file as quickly as possible, so that they are then sent directly to Shopware and we as shop operators can then subsequently process them. Next, there is employee management. A very large part of the B2B components in Shopware 6 is, of course, the structure that we can simply say, okay, you have a Shopware account for your front end, so a shop account with which you can place orders. If we assign you employee management via the business-to-business components, you also have the option to, manage your own employees in your business. So you can create new accounts. For example, as a boss, you might not want to be the only one placing orders. You might also have employees in purchasing, or you might have employees at another different location. All these things can be mapped through it. And you can then say, hey, in rights management, you are allowed to place orders for example, or you are allowed to approve orders from this employee, and so on. There are an incredible number of different conceivable constellations that you can map with this, right? So we have order approval here, meaning the approval for an order that then has to be given by the respective employees. Or you, as a shop operator, can, of course, say, I want to check every order that my employees make beforehand. Such things would be, yes, conceivable also via units and so on. And also, last but not least, you can, of course, also set budgets. That means you can also say, oh, hey, for example, this account has a monthly budget of 2,000 euros. These are just examples now. You can apply a great many different things there. That's how I could now give and take away rights for this this individual front-end account here. Then right at the bottom comes the request management. There I can then determine, okay, is this account allowed to send requests to me as the shop operator? For example, it could be that the customer finds a product too expensive at 1,000 euros and wants to negotiate somehow. Then it would be possible, for example, for the customer to send out a request and say, hey, I would rather buy the product for 950 euros, but for that I would take 3, right? So that's just a very simple example. And this process can also be mapped here via the request management. And you can then, so to speak, conduct negotiations with each other. Then we have the shopping lists at the very bottom. They are often confused with quick orders. But those are two different functions. Here we don't upload a list, but rather we can save a list directly in Shopware. If, for example, we have a case where we order the same thing every month, like a food supplier, and we know exactly, okay, the company really does order these same items every single month and it doesn't change, then you can save that really well as a shopping list. And then the business has the option to simply add everything to the shopping cart immediately using the shopping list and just send out the order without having to build it up from scratch every single time. Yes, so to speak. Now we have assigned all these things to the respective front-end account of our shop, just as we would like to have it. Afterwards, we can simply save at the top, just as we are used to with all other things. But now it's the case that we naturally don't want to assign these rights individually for every single B2B customer, right? So, for example, I would say, okay, the simplest thing would be to create a separate registration form here, or even several, right? You could then build a separate form here in the administration for each individual rights structure. And then, for example, say that whoever registers here has employee management or has quick orders or has everything, right? That would all be possible. And for this, we can basically create additional forms as well. I'll show you that in detail now. That's actually done via the customer groups. And for this, the best thing is to just go to our settings. And then we have a big overview here. And here under our customer settings, we can also find the customer groups, right? And here, for example, I have already in advance for the following videos created the B2B customer group. Here also, for example, as one would do in reality with net prices, which are then also displayed in the front end. And if I go here to this customer group, then I can say, hey, I would like to create a separate registration form for these customers. I could put that together right here. I could now enter a name for this registration form here and so on. I think you know where I'm going with this. We can then say here a little further down, there are the individual B2B functions. And I can say the customer who has registered here, for example, has this function. And they then also do it directly in case there is such a dependency here, for example, right? So we just saw that, right? If I want to have this function here, the company sign up, form must also be activated. And then I can now click together the individual functions for this form here. Afterwards, I can then store a suitable domain and so on for this registration form, save it, and then I can send it out to my business customers that I have as a shop operator. They can then register there, and then I don't even have to do the rights assignment myself. They can then subsequently log into the front end. Let's take a quick look at that as well. For that, I'll switch over to the front end. Once in the front end, after I've logged in with my customer record, I land directly here. You can also log in directly from the administration area by clicking on the respective customer, and then you will also land here. What we can already see here, I have an account here that actually has pretty much all the rights. It now has additional menu items here, yes. So there are now employees, roles, orders, and so on. Quick orders are also available here now, and the customer can actually click through here and do exactly what they would like. And yes, it's basically as simple as that. It really doesn't take much to implement the B2B components. Many of you from back in the day probably still know the B2B suite, which is very similar to what you find here in the function pool, but significantly more complicated. And if you are, for example, still using the B2B suite, you could think about performing a migration to the B2B components. That would go beyond the scope of this video, but it is definitely an option that should be considered. You can also find more about this in our documentation. That's it for the first video, and we will then go into the individual functions here in the front end in the following videos.